thanks everyone so much for coming today. We're really excited to move forward on this project. I know that in the past 2 weeks, you'll have gotten a lot of emails from Bruno and myself, and Ben and Meessen have also been very involved in the process of pushing this forward. So what we'll do is I'll show you. All right. We'll kind of go through a little bit of a recap of what we did and then the next steps for moving forward. So quickly, the agenda, well, basically what I just said, and then we'll have a couple of conversations, discussions to come to group consensus at the end. So the meeting recap, we saw some great presentations and we had some big goals. Just to go over the objectives of the meeting again, it was to help countries to update the PBF tools used to measure quality of care, to develop, an action plan and strategies for implementation of the recommendations so that they're put into practice, the development of a research agenda, and also the strategic reflection on theories of change. So we did a really good job at moving towards these, but I think we'll probably all agree that we haven't achieved these yet, and so that's why we're all here today and to move forward on these. We voted on dimensions, and you all selected. There were 6 primary dimensions that you worked on, which you all are very familiar with, and then there were several groups that you worked on the afternoon in order to put these recommendations into action. So now I guess let's finish what we started here. So really quickly, a couple of things to consider before we dive into building indicators and recommendations for PBF programs. First is that when our goal here with all of you, going back to our first objective, is to create a generic set of indicators that countries are able to pick from and choose from and adapt based on what their priorities are, and obviously the context of the country. But as we know, the indicators are quite similar between PBF programs, and we do also know that the same indicator definitely doesn't always work in 2 different places. So this is the goal is to create a really good starting place for countries who want to improve how family planning is measured in their PBF programs. This is a quick recap, but the most common tools in the PBF programs, right? There's the quantity indicators, the pay for performance indicators. There's the quality of care checklist, which we really dug into, and the patient feedback surveys and patient exit interviews. So as you were all working on your indicators, these are 3 topics that these are the 3 tools that are primarily used. And as you go forward, these are going to be the most common tools in order to be able to implement the changes. Another thing to keep in mind about PBF programs is indicators are linked to payments. So that's how they are incentivized. And indicators are, it's not just for monitoring, but it's in order to incentivize providers for better performance. The PBF checklist, they cover a comprehensive package of services. So although we're going to come up with a list of about 45 indicators, it'll be really important for us to prioritize those as a group. And maybe contextualize them for different settings or different priorities, because in the end, only about 10 to 15 indicators will have the opportunity to make it onto those checklists and other tools. And then finally, it's important to be realistic when you're thinking about data collection. I know that we could come up with really, really great indicators for measurement, but in the end, if they can't be measured using the methods that are currently being used in the PBF programs, then they will be much less likely to be able to actually be adopted by the program. So a quick recap, just kind of to set the frame going forward, because we want really great family planning programs that fit really well into PBF programs so that they can be implemented and used to create change in these programs. I'm going to stop here really quickly. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, I'll continue. So we have, to move on again with that first objective, the deliverables and the objectives of the working group working on dimensions. So a lot of you, and probably all of you who are here today, have put your name on the list to work on different dimensions. The objectives or the deliverables of each dimension will be 7 to 10 indicators using a template that we'll discuss in a little bit that I'll show to you. And then prioritizing those indicators and highlighting if any of them have to be used together. So that's going to help to, when we create a bigger list, guide countries if they're trying to select indicators. And a goal, I know it's a bit short, it's a month from now, but there's such a good foundation that's already been built, so it really shouldn't be so much work. Again, we can discuss this timeline, would be a month from now, because ultimately the goal is to have this report done by the end, or in January. And so that will require, after the indicators are presented by each of the groups as a whole group, we will prioritize the whole set of indicators through voting and ranking, maybe virtual stickies, and then provide a guiding narrative if it's applicable to the indicators, and also take some time to consider the appropriate weighting of the indicators in relation to each other, because that, if they're going on to the quality of care checklist or the patient satisfaction surveys, then there is an element of weighting which actually is quite relevant to the level that they're incentivized. So our goal for that would be December 15th to give us about a month to pull it all together. The template. So the template it's comprehensive, because we really want, through the template, not just to create indicators, but to create indicators, make an argument for what they're trying to change, why they're appropriate for PBF programs. Also think about how it can be collected, whether that means using existing sources of data or through which tool it should be collected. Thinking about, what is needed to analyze the indicator, which also takes into consideration a lot of those first things, how do the PBF programs work? And then also, what is necessary if this indicator will be implemented as a part of the program. And I think if we can really explain each of these 6 points for every indicator created, then there's an excellent argument for each of them of why they should go into the program, and it makes it much easier for the program to adopt the indicator. So let's see, will this work? It didn't. Here, let me escape. So I'm going to click on the link so that we can take a quick look at it, and we're not going to spend too much time going over this. And it's not letting me click. If I do this, will it let me click? Yes. We don't want to spend too much time going over it, but a group of us have worked, quite hard on this template, but at the same time, since you all are the ones who are going to be using it, we'd like to ask you for feedback. So if in the next week you're able to go over this quickly, think about it kind of in terms of your dimension, and provide any feedback to help bring clarity to the template, then that will help everyone as a whole, as a group. So feel free to comment directly on this, or to email me with any suggestions, or email Bruno, and we'll incorporate your feedback. going back to
Tamara, just in the meantime, when you are moving to the next slide. So to everyone, yes. So this is I'm thinking this template is quite an important step actually, and as you know, this meeting on family planning is also kind of the first time ever that the PBF community try to improve its way to approach a specific health domain. So we were very, very happy to do it with family planning. And we believe that it's definitely very relevant to start with family planning. But it's good to keep in mind that this template could be useful also in the future with other health dimensions. And so for us, it's really, well, we developed this template very quickly. We are not sure yet that it's the perfect one. So we expect a lot of validation through this work with the 6 dimensions. Do we capture everything? Do we miss something? Are we biased in one direction, and do we forget things which are really important and they are not captured with the template? So indeed, Tamara asked us to give a feedback by very quickly on the template, empty template, let's say, but we will more fundamentally, I think each subgroup using the template to develop up to 7 indicators. We hope that when you will really work with the template and complete it, you will realize maybe that some questions are missing or some questions need to be reformulated or added. So we believe a lot in this exercise of validation through the applications to the 6 dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
Please go ahead, Tamara.
Okay. Is this a good point though? Does anyone have any questions about the template or this process? Why don't we just take a second if anyone would like to speak up at this moment. I personally can't see the screen, but I think there's a way to kind of indicate that you want to talk, and it can be clicked on.
And in the meantime, I would like to just to develop a bit, because in the follow-up of the meeting, Tamara asked you to register for a specific subgroup, and actually we created quite a large number of subgroups which reflect the many directions taken during the meeting. But we feel that we should prioritize to some extent, all of us. And so the proposition is indeed to, and I know that many of you have not taken one of the 6 dimension group, but the invitation is still that all of us, we try to go in one of the 6 dimension group, because obviously this was the main responsibility of the meeting. And so as Tamara said, she proposed that we deliver by mid-November, this up to 7 indicators for each dimension. So I have been creating over the last days on Collectivity subgroups. So if you go on Collectivity, and I have not finished them, I think I have already created 4 groups, and then the last 2 will be created in the following hours. But then you can go and you can apply for a subgroup. Okay, and we have also tried to identify among you those who could take a responsibility for leading this group, and we try to set up each time 2 persons. And for some subgroups, we are not yet clear on the persons we would like to, well, who would be ready to take this responsibility. So after this webinar, you can go on Collectivity, explore a bit I can send you also the link, and for you to check about these different subgroups. But please apply to these groups, at least one of them, and then it will really help us to move to the next step, because obviously all the other subgroups are also very relevant. They will be launched also. They may be launched in the coming weeks. So while we have not yet finished the first wave, we may already kick off the second wave. But at this stage, we believe that first we launch the subgroups on the dimensions.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. And I think we'll touch upon all of that, because there's a couple of questions kind of out to the general group, as well as a couple of pleas and propositions to you all in order to strengthen our approach towards addressing all of these different topics.
So I see a hand from Eric. So Eric and Valerie, can you unmute Eric, or Eric will listen to you?
I just unmuted, I think. Anyway, thank you, Bruno. You answered most of the questions I just had. one question to Tamara is, can you share that link for that document? Because I don't think we can click on it through the WebEx presentation.
They're all of those. I sent an email earlier today, which has the link to the to the document, to the template, as well as this presentation and the list where people can sign up, the spreadsheet where everyone can sign up for different groups.
Okay, thank you.
So you should have it in your email. But if you don't, let me know.
Hi, Tamara.
Hi.
No. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, this is Francois. I had a question.
Mhm.
Can you go to the previous slide, please?
Sure.
Yeah, regarding the deadline. Is it for the template you just talked about? The word template?
Yeah.
For the indicator?
Here, I'll go back one more. So this is just asking and requesting essentially for a first round of feedback, because as the groups start working on the indicators, we don't want to make this process more complicated. We want to make it the most meaningful possible. So this is just for feedback on the template, on the blank template, and then the actual indicators. Going back to that, the slide that I have up now, which is the deliverables and objectives, the deadline for that one is November 17th, which is a month. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I got it. Thanks.
Okay, Tamara, I think you can go on.
Okay. All right. Wait, am I going in the right direction? No. Sorry.
Can I just ask a quick question? This is
Please go ahead, Paris.
Hello. Yes, just a quick question. I want just to find out about the indicators, because we usually most of the time we are talking about indicators, but we don't mention at which level. Because as you know, for secondary or first level, are we going to focus on the hospital level or the health center level, or both?
I think that's your choice. So if it's an indicator that you think applies to both the hospital and the health facility level, but also don't discount if, for example, if PBF programs include PBF at the district level, then that's also something that can be considered. So that's up to you.
So you will see, it's really indeed to each, so we delegate a lot, so it's really to each subgroup to decide how to navigate this limit of 7 indicators. Well, if you really have to propose 8 because you cannot find a compromise, a consensus within your group, it's of course acceptable. We just put 7 to make a limit, but so among your 7, you could decide that there are 3 for health centers, 2 for hospitals, 1 for district management teams, and well, you know, this kind of things.
Okay.
Yeah, and all of that said, if you can really synthesize it, you know, to 3 indicators that you think are super important, then that almost makes it easier for the PBF programs to choose. And that's also why we ask you to prioritize within them. But I mean, prioritize, annotate. This isn't a clear thing. If you'd like to create more, go for it. We just, there's 2 things. There's a limit because we don't want to make this, we want to make it easy, you know, to pick and choose for a PBF program. At the same time, we also don't want to ask, you know, we want to limit the work that we ask of you as well, because I think that to emphasize, and it's something we said many times throughout the meeting, this is a start, this isn't a finish. This is a really great way to get PBF programs to start thinking about how they do quality of care, specifically for family planning. But this list of indicators is not, hopefully will continue to update and evolve, especially as they start getting implemented and as the implementation research happens and validates or unvalidates, you know, the use of certain of the indicators. So that's kind of the rationale for that.
Okay, thanks, Tamara. There is also a question whether S'agit-il des indicateurs de mesure de qualité contenus dans les documents normatifs du pays? So, Alois, no. This is really, at this stage, it's not to take the indicators which are already in PBF programs, is to invent new indicators. So if you think that the indicator which is already existing in your program is the best the best existing one, obviously you can still propose it. So we should not trash away everything which exists. So I suggest that among your 7, you can safeguard a few which you think are really key to the extent they fit in your team. So let's take an example. If you are in structural indicators, so those about checking stockouts and so on, you may find very good structural indicators already in PBF programs. So then you may decide to repropose that one and say, we think that this is still the best one. But if you are in the knowledge competence group, to my knowledge today, I remember from the presentation done by Salome, there is very little capture of this kind of information in the PBF programs today. So if you are in this subgroup, obviously you will come probably with 7 new indicators. So, but we trust you for this role of screening a bit what's existing already, but don't be too much obsessed by what is existing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and we'll definitely come back to those structural indicators in a bit, because that's really where the core of the indicators that exist already lie. Okay, so quickly to move on to strategy and innovation.
Hold on, Tamara, there are still messages.
Oh, okay.
So a question from Corinne. Should we also define the domain for agreement by the group? What do we mean by an outcome indicator for family planning? So yes, we expect a lot from you actually. So the template, as I said, is a draft. To some extent, it will be validated or not by the process. So we agree that actually for some dimensions, maybe the domain is not fully clear yet, or you may come with you may have to discuss among you before about what is exactly expected. And Corinne, you will be in charge indeed of the outcome group, and I believe that this outcome group has indeed still some work to do, because outcome for family planning is very clear for the family planning communities. We use to develop indicators for surveys and for global monitoring, while we are in PBF. So we know that we are not so much used to develop outcome indicators, and so you will have to make sure that this fits in the PBF logic. So make sure when you apply for projects for the subgroups, so we hope that we will be able to accept all of you in the group that you apply for, but it may happen also that the facilitators of the subgroups decide not to take you because there is an imbalance in their group, and they feel, for instance, that they miss some PBF experts in one group. They may come back to us and say, could you encourage a few experts to join that group? So apply to groups which talk to you, but don't be disappointed that at some stage we have to recorrect the distribution of the expertise. And so for each subgroup facilitators, make sure that you have in your group the expertise you need to move forward with the topic.
Okay, so for the sake of time, I think that some of these questions we'll get to later. And so just for the sake of time, if there's an indicator or a question specifically about the template, feel free to ask it. But otherwise, I'm just going to ask you to hold your questions for about another 5 to 10 minutes, so that and we'll get through everything, and then because we'll talk about some of these things as a group. Does that sound okay? I know there's no way for you to respond to me right now. Is there anyone with their hand raised?
So it's okay, Tamara, you can go
on. Okay, so now talking about the strategy and innovation groups. This is a little bit less clear what the deliverables are, but the goal of this is in terms of the implementation and the evaluation of these new indicators, and then in the case of community, bringing in new innovation as well. And so the deliverables aren't quite as specific. And I'm not going to go through each of these groups right now. I've created some suggestions of what deliverables could be per each of these groups. A lot of these deliverables are based on what you already came up with. I think as far as the strategy and innovation, all of the groups made really great progress during the event, and so it's really just tying together and building a little bit on what already exists. And creating it in a format so that it can be diffused to a greater, it can showcase the work you did and also be disseminated to a larger audience. So I'll let each of these groups kind of people who are interested in them, look at them. I put a couple of points for each of the different 6 areas, or 5 areas, sorry. But that's kind of we'll need an output that kind of helps guide that process of getting these indicators out there and getting them used. Okay, any questions about that?
So just to repeat, so the last slide by Tamara was about the other groups, not the.
Yes, sorry. So there's the implementation at the country level, the dissemination at the global level, and then the next one, theory of change, community, and implementation research, and that was the set of groups.
So yes, so just to say that indeed. So as I said, these other groups will be launched progressively as we progress with the dimension groups, and again, all of them will be developed on Collectivity, so you will be able to read the kind of assignment profile of people we are looking for. And I want to say that some of these things have started already, actually. Just for instance, on dissemination, so Clarisse has finalized a blog. We will probably publish this blog next week. So it's about a personal account, personal report of the meeting. We have also a draft proposal for implementation research. We are also working on a report from the meeting, and thanks a lot again to all of you who took notes during the meeting. So we are using that, and we are using all the PowerPoints to make a report, which will also have a kind of blog format. So these things will also be done, and we will involve you, but we still think that the priority now is to organize the 6-dimension books. Mm-hmm. And so just to say also that on all these other steps, we will come back to you through emails, through Collectivity, but we may also organize another webinar when we will have to move to this second wave of subgroups.
Okay. Okay, so that said, a couple of questions to put out to you. So as Bruno mentioned, the top priority is developing the 6 dimensions out into a set of indicators. The strategy and innovation are also incredibly important. Some of them will be staggered a bit more, and then you can also take a look at, and we can modify what those kind of the outputs of each of those groups are. With keeping in mind that a final report should be completed by mid-January, this is the question for you, is do you want to work on just the indicators and then we work on the strategy and innovation topics? So that means kind of once the indicators are handed in per group, starting in November, we'll start working on the strategy and innovation timeline. This doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. Also, some groups could choose to start earlier, others later, but in the end, we need everything kind of by the first week in January. I think, again, you all have made really great progress. We weren't sure if you want to keep the ball rolling and not disconnect yourselves too far from what you were already working on, or if you'd prefer to just work on one thing at a time. So this is open to conversation. Maybe we can talk about it for about 2 minutes, and then please, everyone, send me your feedback. And based on kind of the general consensus, because if there's a very strong, feeling from one group that they want to start right now, then hey, go for it. We don't want to stop you. So that's kind of the question that's out to everyone. So if anyone has some points they want to make about this right now, I would love to hear them.
And just to complete Tamara, hold on, there is a echo. Yes, just to complete Tamara, it's obviously we are looking to work as much as possible with all of you. So, but as Tamara mentioned, if some of you believe that some subgroups should start already now at the same time as the dimension groups, this is also possible, of course, and then we look for leaders. That's the point I want to say, that feel really free to say, okay, this is very important from my own perspective. I'm passionate about that, and I'm really keen on taking a leading role for this dimension or this group. This is really welcome.
Okay. So does anyone have any thoughts on this? Anyone raising their hand? No? Okay, please send me your feedback about what you think. There's no one who wants to speak up on this right now. I can't see the list. Oh, Abby, you've raised your hand. How do I give you, did I just let you talk? Oh, okay, Clarice too. How do I make this work?
So Abby, I think you have to unmute your mic, but okay, now you can speak, Abby.
Okay. Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay. If I'm correctly hearing you, Tamara, your question is you want to collect feedbacks to do the indicators and the other task at the same time?
Yeah, so here, I guess let me clarify it. We have three options. One of them is that everyone works on just the indicators until November 17th, and then starting on November 17th, everyone picks up another group, for those of you who want to be a part of another group, and moves forward. A second option is that we overlap these timelines, and that people will be working in more than one group at once. So probably one dimension group working on indicators and one of the strategy and innovation groups. The third option is that some groups start working now. As far as strategy and innovation, all dimensions start working now. So those are the three options, with keeping in mind that the timeline for everything to be done is January.
Okay.
Do you have an opinion? No? Here, I think I'm going to unmute Clarice. Hi. Clarice, you're unmuted.
Okay, no, it's just to explain that, yes, indeed, let's say that I didn't wait for the end of the presentation by Tamara to put forward the main proposition. But so the main proposition is that we start with the dimensions, and we may start some other groups soon as well, but we don't propose to start all the groups at the same time. Okay, we feel that it will be difficult to manage for all of us, so we feel that we have to be able to manage the process. So, but clearly we launched the 6-dimension groups now, so you can join those groups, and then as soon as the group is complete, each subgroup can work on the topic. I think that we will probably, it depends, we have also a few things to process here at ITM. We think that we will also launch a few other groups before the end of the dimension group, but we suspect that most of the other groups will be launched actually when we will have finished the dimension groups. So we just, if nobody has a strong opposition with this model, this is the one we would take. But if you feel that there is really a subgroup which should start very soon, and you are ready to take a role in that. So feel free to write to Tamara, myself, Ben, and Moazam, and then we may really, this would be really welcome. It's just that we have to process our own capacity to lead the process, actually. So there is a question from Salome.
And Clarice has had her hand raised for a long time.
Oh, sorry. So,
Clarice?
Go, Clarice.
It was before the very same question that I asked, but just maybe just to give also my opinion on the options, on the different options. I think I prefer the first one. I think it's better maybe we focus on the dimensions, and okay. Once we make some progress, we can now start working on the subgroups.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Clarice. And then Salome says something a bit like that. I prefer to work on the indicators first. However, I think it's good to confirm the membership of the strategy innovation so that we start thinking about it. That's a very good idea. Mm-hmm. So let's do that way, because so here I will produce the 6-dimension template for collectivity in the, well, 4 are already online. I send the mail to you just during the webinar. So when you go to your mailbox, you just have to click on the link, and then you will find 4 of the subgroups plus 2 previous groups. So then you can apply for these 4 subgroups, but just keep in mind that 2 of the subgroups are coming. It is equity and structural indicators. And some of these subgroups have not yet a leadership, and so we are looking also for leaders. In the meantime, so this is my top priority. I will try to do that for tonight. And it means that next week I will start to prepare the template for the other groups, and we will already start the process for the application and so on, but the start of the work will be scheduled for later. But it will give you time to apply and so on. So it's okay. I think that Salome proposition is good. Okay. And I see a mail from Matthew who also supports the approach of starting by dimension first. Okay.
Excellent. So just so that you have it kind of as notes, I'm adding it to the slide that this is the thought so far. We'll, again, if there's a bunch of people from one group who are super excited to get started right now, then we don't want to stop you, and we don't want to break that, you know, flow of energy. But otherwise, we'll go forward with this one.
Can I just say also a few words about how we are attributing the facilitation role to the subgroups? So how we did actually is very inductive, and don't hesitate to, well, there are still subgroups without facilitators. So if you want to develop your facilitation skills and take up this challenge, you are welcome. So that's, as you know, on Collectivity, on the COP, we try always to give opportunities for experts to grow in their skills and expertise. So, but so far we have exchanged with a few of you, and we have paid attention to your interests. First, the groups you when you wrote your email saying which group you would like to join, and so we have made some decision at our level. We have tried also to have a good balance, north-south, and we are also really careful with gender balance. So what is great with Collectivity, we are able to monitor this kind of imbalance sometimes in global health, and we have a strong commitment to correct imbalance that we think which matters. So if you feel that if you really believe that you should be a facilitator, don't hesitate to write me, and then I may direct you to one of the subgroup without the facilitators so far. But just be aware of the kind of rules we are using. So this is why we try also to have duo. So you are 2 for a subgroup. So we hope that this is a way to be complementary and to have the different kind of perspectives which are needed for this kind of work.
Okay.
And so don't be surprised if you receive a mail from me or from Tamara asking you to take a responsibility role. And if you are not contacted for that, don't worry, we monitor that closely, and we know also that there are other groups coming, and we have already names in mind. So we really try to be fair and give opportunities to everyone.
All right. Anything else on that, Bruno?
on my side, I think we have had a very good webinar, so I don't have other points to raise. So just as I mentioned, we will share a first box.
I'm not done.
Oh, sorry. So go ahead, Tamara.
Just on that topic.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So, yeah, talking about the group participation. So, I don't know how many of you have taken a look recently at the list of participants, but it's a bit skewed. We have an incredible number of people who want to work on client experience and outcomes and technical knowledge and competence. Quite a few on the rights-based approach, although there are, from what I can tell, there are no PBF experts working on the rights-based approach, so it might be good to get the opinion of a PBF expert there so that we make sure that it's very applicable to the to PBF programs. Of course, there's going to be an opportunity for feedback after, and we also have a pretty low presence on structural indicators and equity. So I want to make a call for participants for structural indicators, and I'm going to make a pitch for this, and I'll be one of the facilitators for that group. But I think that structural indicators is a way that we can get quick wins with low-hanging fruit. What I mean by that is that the indicators that are currently in the PBF programs are structural indicators, and we definitely are in consensus that the majority of the indicators that are in there don't really capture what we want them to capture. However, PBF programs are used to using structural indicators, and I think there's going to be a challenge to convince a PBF program to completely change the way that they measure. But one thing we can do is we can make those structural indicators that are out there better. Because right now they might only be measuring half of the problem, or maybe they're weighted wrong, or and they're not actually incentivizing the performance and the quality that we're hoping for. So that's my pitch for structural indicators. I think it would be great to have, right now there's only 3 of us in that group, and it would be really great if we could get a couple of people more, especially one more PBF expert and one more expert in family planning, to really dig into the checklists and the way they are and say, what can we easily change? What will be super easy for PBF programs to modify? So that's my pitch for that. Another question is equity. So currently we have 3 people on equity. It's a big job for 3 people. So then the question is, do we want to combine equity with another group? I had one suggestion via email, combining it with the rights-based approach group. Do anyone have an opinion on this?
Tamara, just to add 2 points. The distribution on the Google Drive for the moment also was, many of you were not in any of the 6-dimension groups because you decided the other groups. So I expect that some of you now will move to some of the 6-dimension groups. So let's see what is the situation when we have this transfer. My second point is to say that for equity, actually this is a group which has to work in a kind of creative way, because they may come with some indicators, but they may come also with recommendations in terms of strategy. So for instance, they may say, okay, we have to involve adolescent-friendly facilities in PBF program, which is not so much about adding a new indicator, it's about adding a new provider. So this is a group which is a bit atypical, but I hope also that, so I would propose still to keep it different as one of the 6 groups, but we need persons there who are really able and ready to think in a creative way out of the box. Yeah. We have also a message from,
so just to that, just to add to what Bruno said, that also applies to the rights-based approach. I know that for those of you who are on the call who were working on rights-based approach, that you took a really holistic look at the PBF program as a whole and how rights-based approach could be implemented at every step. And that's excellent. And so again, if it's not creating a set of specific indicators, if it's more of a strategic approach or milestones or indicators, program indicators that, do what you think is important to contribute.
So just two reflections on that. Indeed, so the right-based approach, it's also another kind of group, so we are curious to see what kind of things they will recommend and propose. But on the right-based approach, I have also propositions. I really enjoyed the presentation by the group on the franchising and voucher with Anna and colleagues, how they use the right-based approach to review vouchers and franchising, actually. And I wonder whether the group which presented the 6 country cases, so the presentation done by Salome at the meeting, whether they could not review their PBF programs with the right-based approach framework. And I suspect that then they would really highlight the gaps in the PBF program. And then I said that because there are two options, actually. Either you decide to turn your 6 country review into a paper, and then indeed you need a framework to create intelligence from your data. And then it would be about a paper reviewing 6 PBF programs on family planning with the right-based approach framework, and then it would structure your messages in the paper. That would be one kind of paper. Another kind of paper would be to compare the 3 RBF schemes, so voucher, franchising, and PBF, with using the right-based approach as a framework, and showing maybe that PBF programs are lagging behind. So we cannot discuss that now. But I just want to say that those of you who will join that group, these are the kind of things you could reflect on. And so yes, if you were involved in some of these groups, well, I mean the country review and so on, keep that in mind, because it could be a way for you to continue the excellent work you did. Tamara, we have received some comments on so some of you are ready to move from one group to another. That's good. Those of you who are facilitators, keep in mind that we may not accept that you move to a group to another. Let's see. Alois insists on having a group for equity, so we agree on that. We hope that Alois will join that group. And then we have also a general reflection from Corinne, which I find which is very relevant. It would be Tamara, and then we probably have to work closely with those of you very active in family planning. It would have to, we should have a file where we would compile documents already, where some of you have already worked on indicators in the family planning community. So if these documents could be available for each subgroup, so we are sure that we build on what is existing and we are not reinventing the wheel.
So feel free to add any documents, right? So before the meeting, there's a folder which has all the required reading resources. Feel free to add any documents to that. In addition, on the Collectivity, there was a whole bunch of recommended reading, which a number of different family planning experts from the group recommended as kind of key reading for people who are participating, so that they could get a really good overview of the different priority areas of family planning. There's a few on results-based financing as well. So that's on the initial Collectivity page and also in the Google folder that we've been using for everything.
Just to remind also that since the launch of our project, Collectivity continued to evolve. And now there is, well, you know, there is this discussion forum specific to our working group where the 50 of us are on. And there is always possible for you to post a message and to attach a document to the message. So if you have some indicators and a document about indicators that you want to share, you just go on Collectivity and you start a new topic and you attach the document, and then everybody can access it. Okay, so we keep receiving messages from several of you. So it seems that Tamara everyone agreed that we should keep the equity as a specific group.
Okay.
At least those who reacted. And I can confirm you that several of us are ready to consider to move from one group to another. So I think we have a good dynamic there.
So everyone should be able to change their own names. So go ahead and change your name to the group that you want to be in.
No, but Tamara, I propose that we don't work anymore on the Google, the spreadsheet. I propose that really people go on Collectivity to the subgroup they want to apply, and then they just make an application.
Sure. That's fine. I mean, yeah, that's fine. That'll be a bit harder for me to organize and understand what people are doing. So maybe do both. Because I guess since I won't have access to all of the different groups and won't know who wants to do, if you could just move your name on the spreadsheet also, that would be really helpful to me. But then as a part of the collectivity, that's how you'll enter into the group formally. Or just email me, which is fine too. You can apply on Collectivity and email me just so I can kind of keep it organized as well. Any other questions? Nothing? I can't see. Yeah. So we're coming to the end of the time. Does anyone have anything else? There was one more slide, which I have up right now, which is a bit about the group management. So as Bruno mentioned, each group will have their own collectivity page, which is where group members can communicate, manage their resources, and you can connect with each other. And then all the groups will have two facilitators, as Bruno mentioned. A lot of them have been defined, but not all of them. And then Google Drive, here are two folders where when you're done with your group, if you can deposit them here, that will make it so that everyone in the group can have access to all of the indicators, since only the people, and so we can have them all in one place so that everyone will have a chance to review them and we can compile them. And I mean, expect lots of communication from me and Bruno. So as you can see, the emails have started coming, and definitely as we kick off this process, and then expect lots of reminders as we're coming near November 17th.
So just to complete, Tamara, so for in each subgroup, so there is a duo to facilitate, and one of the two has what we call on Collectivity the project management rights. So it means that this person is informed automatically each time someone applies to the group. You will receive automatically an email of this application. That's one thing. So you can share this application with your colleague, your twin, let's say. Don't decide too quickly, because first wait to have enough applications before deciding, and then you can accept and you can reject people. Maxime, my colleague Maxime, is available to explain you what does it mean to have this project manager rights and what it implies, but it's quite, I think it's quite okay. And then it will bring you to Collectivity, the back end of Collectivity, so the backstage, and we will give you access to the management platforms to manage. You will have also the rights to shape the content of to upload documents and so on and so on. So and then indeed Tamara will not have the information about the applications, but as I have this right, so I see all these things as and so I can also inform Tamara if I see this, if there is an issue with an imbalance. So when you apply for the subgroup, we know you now, so don't be too long in your application letter, but just explain why you think you are the right person for this specific subgroup, and it's okay, I think. Well, it may happen that because Collectivity is taking off, we have new members now. There is a strong wave of new members daily, So we never know. It may happen that you have applications from people who were not in the Antwerp meeting. Well, some of us because they could not, some of them because they could not join, like François from Haiti, for instance, who is with us. So François, we hope that you get back in the loop. We are very happy that you are in this teleconference. But it may still happen that you have no new people coming. And so we do not hesitate to discuss this with us. If their profile is super interesting, we would probably recommend you to take her or him. But if you feel that this person is not, will not be able to contribute because he's coming late in the process and he has not the right profile, we will reject this person and we will apologize. And there will be other opportunities for this person on Collectivity. So just what that's what will happen probably.
Okay. So we're over time at this point, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So are there any final questions or comments from anyone? Feel free to put them in the chat box, and Bruno's monitoring that, or if you raise your hand, I can answer it. Clarice, I am going to unmute you because I'm not sure if your hand is still raised or if you want to say something.
Well,
Okay.
I can always say that, so Clarice wrote a blog, as I mentioned. The blog will be published next week. And so for the moment, the blog is available only in English. We will see whether, well, I cannot guarantee that it will be translated to French, let's say, because it's quite a long blog. In the blog, there will be links to the PowerPoint. So it's a way to remember also and to access the content which has been shared. And feel free to share the blog on Twitter, on Facebook, on any group you are on, and just to help to give some visibility to our meeting. So Tamara, I think we're done.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone. Appreciate your taking the time today. All of the information is in the email that I sent to you beforehand. You should have an access to, plus you can download the PowerPoint, which is also listed as well. They're all also stored kind of in the Google folder. Find it all there.
Bye.
Thanks everyone.